So, as many of you may have seen, there was another server test for Street Fighter 6. It's still in beta. I was lucky enough to get into the beta. I wanted to share my thoughts with you on Street Fighter 6, how it's looking, especially the online play, as well as the future for Street Fighter 6 and what it might mean for competitive gaming and the FGC in general. Now, if you didn't know, I actually grew up playing fighting games as well as RTS games. I know this is mainly a StarCraft channel, but I was always a big fan of one-on-one games. Before StarCraft 2 came out, I was hanging out in Korea, basically waiting for the release of the game, doing StarCraft 1, casting some Warcraft 3 on the side as well, basically seeing what other games were out there that I could maybe have some opportunities to have some work in. And Street Fighter 4 was one of the games I really fell in love with. Artosis and me, we would go to the arcades around Seoul, grind against other players out there. We would also have money matches against each other. Artosis playing a lot of Ryu, a lot of DJ, me doing a lot of Blanca, a big fan of Dhalsim as well. I did actually do some work at Street Fighter 4. In fact, I did Fight Night on ESGN. This is like 8 years ago, but hosted some shows down there. I was never that good at Street Fighter, but I always really enjoyed the game and how difficult and challenging it was. Now, when Street Fighter 5 came out, I was not very impressed. It basically was one of these unfinished games that it comes out, you spend your money, and then the publisher is saying, all right, we'll get the rest of the game figured out later. Be happy with what you've got right now. So I dropped Street Fighter 5 pretty quickly. I did play in one tournament in Korea where I got dumpstered by Punko. I did get one air throw off with him. I was a birdie main. He smashed me with Cammy. But basically, without any real competitive ladder play, without good online matchmaking, I walked away from Street Fighter 5. Now, what makes me excited about Street Fighter 6 and playing in this beta is it does not look like it's going to come out with the same kind of problems that Street Fighter 5 had, in that it looks like it's going to be a much more complete game upon release. Perfect. First of all, it's going to have rollback netcode. Now, if you're not familiar with rollback netcode, I would highly recommend you search for Core A Gaming's rollback netcode explain video. I can also provide a link in this video to that. That'll appear somewhere on screen here. But basically, this allows games that require very, very strict reaction timing to be a lot smoother when it comes to online play. If you get an experience of playing with rollback netcode, it is a massive game changer. It's a much smoother, much more enjoyable experience. I was playing online the entire time during the beta, and with a couple exceptions of players who were in like entirely different regions from me, it was pretty smooth. And keep in mind, this is actually a server beta test as well. So I would imagine the actual release, which should be in the summer of 2023, it's going to be looking pretty nice. I also like the fact that they have automated matchmaking for ranked play. When I first got into the game, when you go into the multiplayer setting, you're kind of roaming through this futuristic arcade. But the fact that you can just queue up for ranked matches and that they have a good gradient system for those ranked matches is really exciting. Because basically, if you're a player like me and you don't have the ability to just hop into a ranked game pretty quickly, people like me get bored. I have fun playing against my friends, but ultimately you figure out where you stand, whether you're better or worse than your opponents and the friends that you know in real life. And you have to go venture out into the giant online world and find who is actually going to be somebody who's right at your level and where you could try to eventually dominate them and move up. So the ranked play is amazing. The general online play itself, I'm curious how other people are reacting to this. It is like you're roaming through a giant arcade. It is sort of a social experience. For me, that was pretty cool because I grew up in arcades. I'm glad that you're also able to circumvent that. I know with Guilty Gear Strive, one of the things I didn't really like about it was that I had to navigate my little character through almost like a platformer to then find ranked games, where I think just coming into any game where there's that automated matchmaking, that's a little bit more ideal. I do wonder for a lot of younger players who are picking up the game, what their take is on moving through this sort of digital environment of a digital arcade, if you want to call it that, since for the most part, unless you're in certain parts of Asia, people don't really have arcades anymore, especially if you're in the U.S. In fact, most of the arcades in the U.S. are basically like barcades where they bought all the old arcade machines and then they put them in bars. So you're probably, unless you're growing up in a bar as a kid, which probably isn't a good way to start your youth, you're not experiencing this kind of environment. Anyways, I'm glad they had that nostalgia factor added in there. As far as the gameplay mechanics go, it is the same Street Fighter as before, as long as you're on classic controls. Now, if you're a newbie, you can go to modern controls. I'm going to be doing a whole separate video on this in regards to what I think Stormgate can learn from Street Fighter 6 here. But the truth is that it's very hard for new players to actually come and execute the kind of moves that you want to have in a game like Street Fighter. Even in the fireball motion, a lot of people end up just jumping up in the air and punching. So I think having modern controls to at least give people who have not had a really long background in fighting games can at least experience what that's like. Now, if that becomes something that'll be banned in competitive play, or maybe certain characters become strong with modern controls over classic, we'll have to see. I'm not enough of an expert to know about that, but it is something that I'm definitely excited to see because I want more people to be able to experience this. It is such a hardcore game. The drive impact was definitely the biggest surprise for me coming into the game. The fact that it is not cancelable like a focus attack is interesting. It does seem like it's going to force a consequence one way or another. I did struggle against the wall when I was getting smashed into that over and over again. But these updated mechanics I think are all a welcome thing. Overall, the game's really good. I like the characters that I got to experience. In Street Fighter 4, I mained as Blanca and Dhalsim, and those characters were not available. I did try out Guile, who I've always wanted to try to learn in Street Fighter 4, but never really got around to it. He's really fun, and I think he's a really solid character. I do want to try these other newer characters as we get closer to the game's actual release, especially with Blanca and the new puppet mechanic he has, or like the doll or whatever. The fact that you might have new mix-ups like that is super exciting. And long-term, I am hopeful that with the release of Street Fighter 6, this is really going to push fighting games into an even better position in the future. Fighting games have always had a really solid community, great viewership, and fans that are very passionate and loyal. But it's always been the publishers that, in fighting games, I should say, that are a little bit behind where you would see publishers from shooting games, from RTS games, from MOBA games. So I'm hoping that when Capcom releases this and they keep the competitive format in mind, they also foster an environment where pro gamers can make good money, casters can make good money, tournament organizers can make good money, and really zero in on that, because I do think that, especially when it comes to esports with fighting games, it's a huge marketing tool, but you want to make sure that those people are supported inside of the game and the scene as well. In 2023 and 2024, there's going to be other fighting games coming out. Project L from Riot Games will be releasing. This is looking pretty similar to Marvel vs. Capcom 2, although, I haven't been able to play it like everybody else. But the fact that Riot is releasing a game in this ecosystem is pretty exciting, because Riot has proven with both League of Legends and with Valorant that they are very willing to back a major competitive scene and create an ecosystem where their very best players can thrive. So as good as Street Fighter 6 is looking, I've got my fingers crossed that Capcom is also going to be trying to compete with companies like Riot and really create a healthy ecosystem so that the Street Fighter series can be carried on healthily into the future. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you're enjoying content like this, please like and subscribe to the channel. That blesses the YouTube algorithm and makes videos like this easier to get out to the general YouTube audience. Also, check out my merch. This is an option select shirt, FGC inspired. You can find that at tastelessthreads.com, and I will see you in the next video.